What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we dive back into our free-to-play challenge here in MTG Arena, where I start a brand new account, not spending a single dime on the game of MTG Arena, and the end goal of trying to build a competitive deck. We are on day 10 of the challenge. So far, it's been going pretty good. We've been able to grind up enough currency to be able to do 5 quick drafts of Midnight Hunt. We're in the process of currently grinding more currency to get ourselves closer to doing another batch of drafts, hopefully of the Crimson Vow quick draft, I believe, which is now the current quick draft as of the recording of this video, with the end goal of hopefully maybe trying to do somewhere around the same amount of drafts, if not more. We are starting to get into that middle part of the overall challenge where we are starting to now really build up a solid collection of cards, also build up a collection of wild cards, and at the same time too build up a collection of overall packs here on our account. Now I could go ahead and probably open these packs for the most part for the things of like New Capenna, Kamigawa, and Kamigawa Alchemy, just because these are things that won't pop up in some sort of draft at our current time. The one thing I probably will not do is probably open up the Crimson Vow, and I'll probably just save the Baldur's Gate packs till the end, and if we need to maybe grind out a couple more cards overall, maybe we will just kind of open these packs to get some wild cards to be able to craft maybe cards we are missing to finish out our deck when we get to that point. But in today's video, I will just go ahead and I will open all 9 of these packs, which will then give us a little another boost to our collection overall. Awesome. So we got ourselves a 2 rares, and we got ourselves a rare wild card, which these are definitely very good. This allows us now to not need as many more rares for the deck, because now we can craft a rare that we're specifically looking for. And I actually am going to talk about the next thing after I finish up opening these packs, talking about what happens next as we kind of get a little bit more further and further along when it comes to overall rares and mythic wild cards that we have in our overall wild card collection. And now we're just going to open the last pack, the Streets into Capenna pack. Yet again, not really anything too great, but the thing is, after opening up all these packs, we now go up to 26 commons, 25 uncommons, which should probably be more than enough that we're going to need to build any deck that we're going to need in those 2 categories. We now have 12 rares, which is also beneficial, and now 5 mythic rares. And the one thing I will say, just to kind of point out, is that now I've shown you guys this before, and this is my Untapped.gg profile. I use their app on the MTG Arena game, and this app essentially just tracks my overall progress with my collection and then my overall statistics when it comes to playing actual games on the play queue and or the rank queue. And it just kind of shows you just a general idea of what decks I've been playing, what the overall records are with those decks, and the cards that contain in those decks. The 2 decks here are actually both of the starter decks, and this one is the mono white deck, just because in the color challenge you do actually at the end play 5 games against other players, and I went 4-1, but for some reason it's only showing 4-0, which is not a big deal. I guess it doesn't count a loss as a loss in that mode. But then on top of it, you can see here overall collection progress. We're showing about 17.2% of all the cards currently in constructed, which is definitely good. We also are showing our total wild cards that we have currently available, and also our overall vault progress, which is that thing that you get when you have extra great uncommons and commons. They'll go towards your vault progress, which after getting to 100% gives you more wild cards as well. Now, the one cool thing that happens with this overall tracker is that you can click this button here. I'm not sure if this is something that you have to pay additional money for. I do have the premium, which is I think $5 a month, but I do think you get some sort of feature here when it comes to this. And what it will show is that it will show you based on your collection, it will show you your craftable decks based on your overall progress and wildcards that you do have. So if you click this, you can kind of get an idea of where we are at when it comes to overall what we could build with what we have, which is definitely pretty awesome, because I do think that's always one of those things when it comes to maybe building your first deck and you're unsure of where to go, you're not sure what you could build, and to do all the research and individually find those deck lists will definitely be a challenge. But this is definitely cool. It takes, based on the meta from bronze to mythic players, it shows you decks that people are playing that they're using, and shows you the amount of matches that have been recorded with said deck, and also the overall win rate, and roughly about the average match time that you can play with those decks. And we do have a whole bunch of decks. It looks like we have 28 total deck lists that we could play. We have a low to the ground mono white double spell kind of deck that we could craft, though I would probably avoid this one if you are somewhere around the same lines as me, just because a lot of these cards will rotate out, and I wouldn't want to waste the wild cards to craft cards that we're not going to have in a couple months. The next deck up here on the list is actually a Selesnya Enchantments deck. This is another interesting deck. This is maybe one of the decks I'm leaning towards maybe crafting. It does have one card that is going to be not useful come September, which is Rune of Might, but it's a possibility we could get a replacement. But I do think the overall list in general is pretty budget friendly and pretty low to the ground. It also has mono red goblins, which is definitely pretty cool. Yet again, it's a good deck, but I would say this is another deck that unfortunately a lot of cards rotate out, which is not usable. There's another variation of this as the enchantments deck. It's nothing too crazy different about it. I think the only big difference here is that it has Fangs of the Shigeki Snake there. There's another mono white double spell deck. Just yet again, I think here it has Maul of the Skyclaves. Yeah, mono blue Delver, which is an interesting deck. This one's definitely another good deck. This is another deck I do enjoy playing. Though I could see like if you wanted to maybe build this so that you're not crafting cards that are going to rotate out. I do like the card Ledger Shredder to maybe replace your overall Ascendant Spirit, just because this card will rotate out and you just swap out the lands from Snowlands to just basic blue lands. And I think other than that, the Jawari Disruption is the only other card. But the rest of the deck stays intact, which is definitely pretty good. And yet again, it's just a bunch of decks that you can go through and kind of figure out what you like. Kind of like I said, shows you the overall match things. If you want to play Rakdos Sacrifice, it's kind of cool that I could build a version of that and actually craft a decent amount of the lands that it's actually asking for, just based on my overall rare and mythic collection that I have wildcard wise. And this is just something that you'll see as you kind of build up your overall collection, just decks and possibilities. I would suggest if you're going to use something like this, a tool that kind of helps you, I would just double check the overall win rate and just the amount of matches that have been played with that particular deck, just because you don't want to build a deck like that's somewhere down here at the bottom of the list that's 32% and it's not going to win you any matches. This is just the starter deck. That's why it says all cards owned. It's just the mono black starter deck for the most part. I would preferably, if you're going to build a deck and you're going to use a guide or, maybe a list like this, I would probably just go ahead and craft a deck that already has a proven win rate, which is not going to, give you advantage. Like this deck here, this deck is showing that is definitely a viable win rate deck, 58.2%, 11,000 matches, about 5.5 minutes per match. And, for what I have budget wise, I can craft all the cards, which is definitely good. The pathways are probably the one card that I probably would avoid crafting. Maybe just try my best to craft the green white dual lands instead that come into play tapped in the first 2 turns and then come untapped in turns 3 and later. But yet again, this is just showing the possibilities of what you can do with what you have, even if it's very limited on what you do have already available to you. And then the other thing you can do is you can also just take a look and kind of see what you're missing if you want to just take a look at the overall deck lists that are currently on the ladder here, and just overall kind of get just a general idea of where you are at. A lot of them, as you see, that are insufficient wild cards, a lot of them come in the mythic and rare and the rare slot, just because a lot of these decks require your 29 or so lands, and a lot of them just come from the mana base, just because those lands are very costly. So if you took out that, you could probably craft the main board and then maybe try to tweak the mana base to maybe tweak it to a way that is something that's viable with what you have collection wise. But overall, you just want to gauge what is going on with each of the deck lists and kind of figure out what you could build, what you can't build, and what you maybe want to build towards in the future without actually diving into it immediately and just kind of wasting your wild cards with that. With that being said, I'm actually just going to dive into my games today. We are just doing the jump in event just because that is currently what we have the currency to do. We already have a deck. I do have one more jump in token here that I can use to do another one. I'm not actually a big fan of the current package, so a part of me is actually maybe over the next couple of days, depending on how the games go, maybe actually just jumping in and crafting the deck, crafting a little bit more budget friendly deck very early, maybe on like day 15, just because it shows that it's possible just based on a little bit of grinding and whatnot, and maybe get a little bit lucky with currency. But it's definitely one of those things. Once we build that competitive deck, I can then use that deck now to get my daily wins. I don't have to play a limited event. The games will probably go a lot quicker just because I can then either jump into a ranked queue or even the play queue. And typically, especially in the ranked queue, a lot of the players there are a little bit more experienced. So it's definitely a little bit of a quicker game just because players kind of understand the movements of how the game of Magic works. And then, we'll try to grind up to 10,000 gold, which is another thing I want to do, either to dive into Crimson Vow drafts or just to maybe, risk it and dive into a Premier draft. Though the unfortunate part of the current Premier draft, it is Alchemy Horizons Baldur's Gate, which is not going to be beneficial to us in the sense of it's not going to provide us a bunch of cards that are going to help us in our standard challenge, though it does provide overall better rewards. So it's definitely something to look out for. And it's one of those things that is something you probably want to jump up into once you kind of feel like you got a good vibe for what goes on in drafting, just because drafting against players is definitely like what you would experience in real life. And it's definitely different than actually drafting against AI bots for the most part, but definitely one of those things we're definitely going to be on the horizon for. It's definitely one of those things I'm going to overall think over the next few days as we kind of get closer and closer to that 10K. But I'm going to dive into the games and we'll maybe wrap it up and kind of talk about some of the other things after I play my games. Now, the one thing I did forget to do before we jump into the games is I forgot to reroll one of these daily quests to kind of see if we get our bonus of getting either a quest that gives more gold or just switching it up from seeing what we got quest-wise. So I'm going to just take this one that has one of the colors that we do play in our deck and just re-roll it and see what we get in the process. All right, so we have to play 20 red or black spells, which our deck is black-red for jump in, but I just figured I just mentioned that before rolling it without actually filming it, just to kind of show you guys, just in case if I did get a 750, it was because of the re-roll and I didn't have it prior. So we're going to dive into the games now, and then we'll jump back into it afterwards. And we are back to the home screen after playing our 15 games for the day. I will say Jump In has been kind of interesting since Baldur's Gate has released. The Baldur's Gate has quite the effect on the overall feeling of how Jump In felt comparatively before to how it is now. There's a lot of good cards that have come from Baldur's Gate, and those cards kind of show how powerful they are compared to normal cards from other sets here in MTG Arena. It's kind of making me, like I said earlier, making me think a little bit more about maybe trying to look at decks I can craft in the near future, maybe after we're done with our Crimson Vow drafts, just because it's not as fun as I guess it once was. I did end up using my last Jump In token and just swap decks in the middle of it, just because I just wasn't feeling yet again the other deck I drafted. But we did draft a pretty decent red-green deck that we are playing with, red-green-white deck that we're playing with, that's like monsters and humans, which has definitely been a little bit better of a shakeup. It has a lot of big creatures. I felt like the other decks that we were playing had a lot more things that were trying to do tricks than actually like really make a presence of creatures on the board, and I think this is a little bit better in that direction. There's a lot of life gain in our deck as well, and definitely a way to kind of put out a lot of creatures onto the board overall as a whole. If we want to just take a quick look and kind of take a look at it, we picked the monsters and humans. We have like Torrens as being one of our rares that whenever we play a creature spell, we get 1/1 human soldiers that also have training, and himself also has training. So whenever you attack him, there's creatures of greater power that are attacking along him. We get to put +1/+1 counters on our creatures when they attack. Our other rare of the deck is our monster manual, wherever it is. Interesting card here, 4 mana artifact that we can tap 2 mana. We can just put a creature card from our hand onto the battlefield and activate only as a sorcery. So we can only do it during our turn. And then the other side, the other like part, because it's an adventure card, has another effect that is 3 mana that we can mill 5 cards, then return a creature card milled this way to our hand. So a little bit of more of a risk if you don't think you're going to hit a creature in that, but there's definitely a good balance of creatures in here. And it's definitely a very strong card just because it helps us cheat out cards like, Hill Giant Hedgehogger, like earlier than it needs to be, or we don't have to spend all 6 mana, and then we can use our mana more efficiently later in the game if we have that out. Another cool card that we have in our deck is Skanos, Dragon Vassal. It's a 5 mana 4/4 with Specialize that whenever it attacks or another attacking creature gets +X/+0, X is Skanos' power. We can discard a green card and we get the green side of it where it's 6/6 with Vigilance, and whenever it attacks we get to untap another attacking creature and it gets +X/+0 until end of turn X is its power, so the X just goes up a little bit more. And then we have other ways to kind of utilize this to kind of like get a bigger effect, just way to pump up our creature's power and toughness. And then we can also discard our white card. I think I already cycled through it, and we can make a 4/4 lifelinker that same thing, but then now the creature will get lifelink and +X/+0, so that's definitely pretty good depending on the game state situation. But overall this deck has definitely felt a lot better. I will say it's still a little clunky because we are playing limited, and the removal is very spacious, more sporadic in these decks, just because you have like one-offs of a lot of the removal spells and you don't really have a ton of it. So this deck kind of takes advantage of a little bit of removal with some fight spells, but on top of it also utilizes a little bit of some combat tricks, maybe to catch your opponent off guard by pumping your creature in the process. This deck is just more of let's just try to be as aggressive and play as big as things as quickly as possible, just to kind of overwhelm your opponent that way. But this definitely, like I said, has been the better of the decks. I think after the updates to the packets, this is probably the way I'll probably stick to. But like I said, I'm still not a big fan of the alchemy stuff, infiltrating more of our stuff that was kind of like originally I felt like was more designated towards standard with maybe some alchemy tweaks, but not really full alchemy cards in it. Whereas now it's like we have alchemy cards in it on top of like the standard cards, and it just shows how much better the alchemy cards are just in terms of power comparatively to cards that are not from alchemy sets or alchemy adjusted cards. So like I'll probably, maybe after we get to our Crimson Vow drafts, which we're getting close to, we're at 7,975, so roughly probably about another like 2-ish days until we could probably do a draft or do multiple drafts, just because we could already do 1 draft, but we're saving for 10k, so we can at least do 2, and then the possibility of a 3rd, if not more, because we already have some gems saved up as well. But like I said, we are progressing along pretty good, and then after we probably do our next batch of drafts, I'll probably assess from there based on how many rares and mythics we have and other wild cards we have, whether or not we decide to dig in and just build a deck and just kind of get ourselves out of playing Jump In, because I think we've kind of done enough of Jump In for the most part in this series, just because I think it was good enough to kind of help us get our start, and then I think after 2 drafts and saving our wild cards and slowly opening our packs as we've been acquiring them at the right times, I think this has definitely been it's done its part to get us to where we are currently. We still have 6 packs of Baldur's Gate packs, which include 3 of the ones that we got from the promo code. And then we still have our Crimson Vow packs, which I'll open up all these after I do the Crimson Vow drafts. Just because at that point, I don't know if I'll, sit there and grind out another 10K, or if that's the point where we go and craft decks, and then we'll see what we open in these packs, just to kind of figure out whether or not we can craft anything. But right here we have 9 packs. We're sitting at 2 out of 6 on this wheel, so this is at least guaranteed 2 more rare wild cards just from this spinning around twice, and a couple more uncommons, and then whatever we open up in those packs. But if we get more packs, there's always a possibility that we'll open wild cards in our packs. And then on top of it, if we get to like 12 packs, 15 pack, this puts us in a better position for this to spin around more times to give us more rare wild cards, which is definitely beneficial. And then after that, like if we have extra gold or extra currency and we're still a little bit short, as much as I would probably like to save it, I'll probably just, spend it to hopefully get the remaining whatever we need, whether it's we need to open a couple more packs, save a couple more wild cards or something like that. I'll try my best to do that. But yeah, I mean, we're approaching, the time to maybe make that big decision here in this video series of what deck we're going to craft and how close we are to actually physically crafting it. I do think we have a lot of options, even right now, and in the near future, if we can get, our wild cards for rares and mythics maybe up a little bit higher, we can probably even craft a bunch more. We're not going to craft the mono whites, we're not going to craft like the Nine humans, but we would still probably be able to maybe craft like a Boros aggro, or maybe we can craft like the Selesnya enchantments deck. We can maybe craft ninjas, we can craft like a mono blue tempo. There's definitely a lot of possibilities, and like I said, I showed earlier, I have my tool that kind of helps me figure out what I can do. And the one thing I want to do before I go is just kind of show you like the tool real quick and how to install it, because someone did ask me. It is a tool that's only for PC. If you see anyone else use a tool, if it's not Untapped.gg and it's the one through like AetherHub, all these tools are only PC. There isn't a tool for phone, unfortunately, just because I guess the way the apps run on phones, you can't have on PC you can have apps open at the same time and they don't like go suspended while another app is running. But that's the problem with phones. But it's really pretty simple. You just go to the webpage, like this, and you just click download, and download the app, and then you just kind of install it, and then it kind of detects once you open up MTG the first time, it will actually probably it'll probably pop up with the app, ask you to sign in, link your account, and then it'll start tracking your stuff, and it won't like start at reset. So if you already have some progress, especially with your collection, it'll pick up all that. So any games you play after installed, that's when this part starts, is when you actually install that. It's not going to do prior game history before that. And then there are some different features that the thing does have comparatively. If you pay money, if you don't have money to pay, it still has a lot of good features. You can do deck tracking, draw chances, land counters, opponents revealed cards, so you can kind of get an idea. And then the stuff on the right hand side, stuff that you can purchase. I think, like I said, it's $5 a month to get that. You don't get the Draftsmith ratings or the recommended deck, unfortunately, but I do think you still get the LSV ratings. I'm not sure. It may not give you any of it. I'm not 100% sure, but it also shows you your ladder performance for the free, your matchup statistics, on the draw, on the play statistics, because I feel like sometimes you feel like you're in a rut, but if you actually look back and kind of look at your total statistics, it probably looks a little bit more balanced, though sometimes it feels like you're a lot of the times on the play, and then sometimes you feel like you're always on the draw. You can track deck versions, so if you make iterations to your decks, you can track where you originally started and where you kind of iterated from. And then your profile history is the last 2 sets, which is not the worst. Last 2 sets is still pretty good. You can filter the data ranked by bronze through platinum. Unfortunately, not the mythic stuff or diamond, but it's not the worst. I don't think either. Just because a lot of the decks that are even the lower ranks, I mean, sure, those lower ranked decks are probably a little bit more skewed towards like people who are grinding up the ladder, whereas people who are already at the mythic. But it's still not that bad. You can sync your collection, you can import decks to MTGA, you can get standard data, and you can also get the best of 1 data, which is probably the most common form of Magic everyone does play. And then, like I said, constructed deck statistics and limited card statistics. So definitely still pretty good. But overall, it's a cool app. I would say if you are a PC player, you don't play with an app. At first, when I first started playing MTG Arena, just being a person who played physical Magic, I was a little bit more of a purist, just because you didn't have someone to help you as you were playing. But I would say if you're just looking for something to kind of give you some insight, whether it's your collection progression, whether it's wondering what decks you can build, what you currently have in your collection, it definitely does good with that, even for the free version. So definitely something I would recommend to look into. And I guess the added benefit is if you want to use it, you can always use your deck chances and stuff like that in the game, and kind of understand what your draw chances of drawing a particular card. card if you feel like you haven't drawn that card, or what your chances of drawing a land or drawing a non-land card are just based on what you've drawn so far in a game. It's definitely a lot of various different things. But guys, like I said, if you like this video series, hit that like button. It definitely helps out a lot. I know we've been going on for quite some time already. I mean, we're already in the double digits for days of doing this. And if you have any comments or feedback, or have any questions about certain things that maybe I didn't show 100% and you just want to get some clarification, leave a comment down below. I'll do my best to answer them. And if you're new here, you want to know post new videos on the channel, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, I'll catch you in the next video. Just want to give a special shout out to the channel members here on my YouTube channel. You can also become a channel member yourself down below the video, hitting that join button. It definitely helps out a lot, and I just appreciate you guys for your support.